All right, Chairman, you are live. Applicants, please stay muted until the chairman calls your name.
Okay, welcome to the May 6th Town of Henrietta Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Douglas Levy. I'm the chair. Let's start tonight's meeting with roll call. Robert Peckham.
Here.
John Migliorone.
Here.
Christian Chamberlain.
Here.
Beth Mossworth.
Here.
Heather Robinson.
Here.
Jesse Redlow.
Here.
And do we have a motion on the minutes from April 1st?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on April 1st of 2020.
Okay, I'll second that. All those in favor? Well, we'll do roll. Robert Peckham.
I'm in favor. Approve.
John Migliorone.
Approve.
Christian Chamberlain.
Aye.
Beth Mossworth.
I approve.
Heather Robinson.
I approve.
You have to abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry. I abstain.
And Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also approve. And instead of doing the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, we're going to take a moment of silence to collect our thoughts for the community and for all the frontline workers. Okay, tonight we're going to do the applications in order with one exception. We're going to move application 2020-034 to right after application 2020-021. So tonight our first application is table application 2020-018. I don't believe we need any more discussion on this. So if we can have a motion.
I'll make the motion to deny.
It's yours to motion, Christian.
Huh?
You got to read your notes.
Got to read your page.
Oh, I have it. So, okay. So with regard to application number ZBA 2020-018 for an area variance, I move to deny as follows. Whereas the zoning board has 1, duly advertised and held a public hearing, 2, has considered all relevant information, and 3, has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. The variance can be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The applicant is allowed signage on the existing monument sign provided by the industrial park. The variance requested is substantial. Other tenants may be encouraged to obtain their own standalone sign. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. Well, though an additional sign would not affect environmental conditions, any signage would alter the physical appearance of the property. And the difficulty relating to the variance was self-created because the applicant wishes greater visibility of where they are located. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeal hereby denies the variance as presented.
I'll second
I'll
that.
second that. Jesse, go ahead.
I'll second that.
Okay. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Robert Peckham.
Aye.
John Migliorone.
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain.
Aye.
Beth Mossworth.
Aye.
Heather Robinson.
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Motion carries. Next application tonight is application 2020 by Norma Kelly. Norma, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Good evening.
Good evening. You've been
Good
quite
evening to you.
interesting so far.
Can you explain a little bit about why you need the application?
I want the application so I can put in a handicap ramp for myself.
Okay,
I have sclerosis of the back, and I'll be needing a wheelchair probably within a couple of years. And I don't want to have surgery. It's too involved. I can go out on the porch and I can't really turn around and feel safe because it's concrete and it's slanting and it needs to be leveled. And this is the only way I see that it can be leveled. I'd just like to have a safe way of getting in and out of my house.
okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
No, it makes perfect sense to me. I understand.
Is this going to be a temporary or permanent structure, or what is it going to be made out of?
It's going to be
metal?
it's going to be a permanent structure.
Is it gonna be-
Norma,
oh,
what,
I'm sorry.
sorry, what are you gonna be making the handicap ramp out of? Or install?
I'm trying to think what it's called. I have a back porch that's made out of it. It's like plastic, but it's not. It's going to be white with railings. It's going to be pretty. I cannot stand anything ugly. It's got to match my back porch.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sure it'll be lovely.
Yes, it will be lovely.
All right, who has this one? Beth, you have this one.
Any
Correct.
questions or comments or concerns from members of our audience?
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Okay, all those, can we have a motion then?
Mr. Chairman, in regards to application ZBA 2020-019 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has, one, duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and three, has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties, as there are several properties that have front decks that reduce the setback on their property, and this is for egress in and out of the home. The variance cannot be achieved by some other means feasible. A ramp is needed for handicap access of wheelchair needs. The variance requested is not substantial. The variance will not have a negative effect on the physical or environmental conditions. The difficulty of the variance was not self-created, and be it further resolved that based on the above finding, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variance as presented.
I will second that.
Second by Bob. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Miglione,
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. Okay, Norma, you're all set.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Aye.
Our next application tonight is application 2020-020 by Frank Campbell. Frank, are you with us?
You have to unmute, Frank.
I got you, Frank. You should be all set.
Frank, do you want to explain a little bit about your application?
Frank is back on mute.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. I currently have a 8x12 shed, and it's rather full. And every time I have to get something out of it, I have to empty half of it to get what I need. And so a larger shed would help me to be able to spread things out and make it easier to get things in and out.
Okay. Questions from the board?
On the paperwork that you gave us, Frank, you have a series of pictures on there of different potential sheds from Fisher Storage. And also another one that shows different designs. Have you picked a design yet, or is this something that you're in the middle of figuring out still?
I prefer to go with the barn shed, basically because it'll give me more overhead room.
Understood.
Any electricity to it, Frank?
I am a master electrician, and I will be putting power in it. And I will have it inspected.
Okay.
Do you think this new size shed is gonna fit your needs?
Say that again?
Is this new size shed, is this gonna fit all of your needs to be able to move your equipment around to get to it all?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns from members of the audience?
We have none.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, do I have a motion on this application?
Doug, can I ask one question, Mr. Campbell? The old shed is going away, correct?
Yes, I actually put it on the penny saver in the
Okay.
give and take, and I got like 50 calls on it. I should have put it up for sale.
Right. Okay, that's all I had. I'm all set.
Yep.
Thank
Yep.
you, Doug. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
With regard to application number ZBA 2020-20 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties, as the property currently has a shed and applicant is just replacing to provide adequate storage. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative, as a smaller shed would not meet the applicant's needs, as he needs access to his equipment. The variance requested is not substantial, as there are other sheds in the neighborhood larger than the variance, and the applicant only needs an additional 14 square feet. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions, as the applicant is replacing the existing shed with a new shed. Difficulty relating to the variance was self-created, as the current shed within the variance does not meet the applicant's needs. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeal hereby approve the variance as presented.
I'll second.
Seconded by John. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Migliorone,
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. Okay, Frank,
Good luck
Okay.
with your new shed, Frank.
Thank
you're
you.
all set.
One question. can I go ahead and move on having the old shed moved and then start my
Yes.
slab?
Yeah, you can definitely have that one moved. You can apply for the application for the new one.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Good night, gentlemen, ladies.
Good night.
Okay, our
Good
next
night.
application is by Donald and Catherine Steppenbacks for application 2020-021.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And I'm sorry, I don't have video. I don't know what's wrong with it, but we're here.
Can you briefly go over your application for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak on our behalf because basically the house is 62 years old and we still have the original concrete steps, which are 3 different size steps ranging in height from 7 inches all the way to 10.5. And the landing coming out of our front door is rather small. I fell twice off our front steps in one winter, basically just due to the lack of the size coming out the front door, and that the area in the steps coming up and down is really unsafe. I have rheumatoid arthritis and I'm having a lot of difficulty getting up that 10.5-inch step. In addition, the steps are crumbling in several spots. We have tried over the years to put railings up multiple times and they just rot right out. So for all of those reasons, we want to add a front deck to the front of the house, which is why we want the variance, just to have a little bit larger space. And it's mostly for safety reasons, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, questions from the board?
I have a couple questions. We were discussing this a little bit earlier, and I heard those reasons, and those all make sense to me. But one of the questions that came up and that we were thinking about is there any way to make this variance smaller? Meaning, maybe 6 foot by 10 foot or something of that nature. Does that work in the process? In the plans to make a functional deck on front that gives you the safety that you need with enough space to maneuver?
I was just figuring on, because we're going to put a wider step in because of Catherine's arthritis and bringing stuff into the house, if we got to turn stuff or for some reason she has to go into a wheelchair or something like that. You know, if she has to go into a motorized or something like that for turning radius and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons too.
We kind of were looking at this long term. We plan on staying in the house like for a very long time. And so with the larger size front deck, it would be easier to get things in and out of the front door. We don't really have, the house is not situated such that we can easily move furniture in and out of the house, either through the garage or through the back. So the only option we really have is for our front area. That was why one of the reasons that we, had designed the front the way we did was to allow enough maneuverability for moving things in and out of the front door.
Because of the railings, really, for spinning a couch or anything like that. That's why I figured that 10 by 10 would be kind of perfect for turning and stuff like that. And if, like I said, in case she ever had to go in a wheelchair, a little bigger room to move around and stuff like that. Because we had to pick out a textured flooring for the deck, so it won't be so slippery and stuff, because coming out just holding on to the railings and stuff. But
my last question for me is, are you putting furniture on the deck itself?
The most we would put on there is a chair, a 2-seat chair.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all the questions that I have.
All right. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions from members of the board?
So I know that you are looking for the 10 by 10 for the space, as you mentioned just now. Are you going to be getting a motorized scooter, or are you going to be getting potentially down the line, are you going to be getting a regular wheelchair?
Well, Heather, those really aren't in the plans right now. I'm certainly hoping that I don't ever need anything like that. We're just looking at, again, down the road, if we had to build a ramp over the steps that we anticipate putting in, would be a whole lot easier to do that if there was more room to maneuver up top. But I'm certainly hoping,
We don't want to wish that on nobody.
I really don't want to end up that way. So, but yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns from members of the audience?
I have none.
Thank you, Heather. Any
Mr. Chairman, just one comment that I'm looking now that I'm at my office. I got access to Google. There is a house 2 doors down to the east.
Yeah.
The house actually sits forward. It's about 10 feet forward, and that one actually has a wooden deck on the front of that as well. So that's going to be even closer than this house. This deck would be at 10 feet. Just an observation.
Thank you.
Any discussion from members of the board?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, with regard to application number 2020-021 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals make the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties, as nearby properties have a deck in the front of their house. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative, as nothing else would create a flush alignment with the front door. The variance requested is not substantial, as the deck will still maintain a safe setback from the road. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions, as the deck will actually make the property more physically appealing. The difficulty relating to the variance was not self-created, as the current concrete front steps are original to the property when the applicant bought the property. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby approves the variance as presented.
I'll second that one.
Seconded by Christian. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Migliorone,
He's muted.
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson.
Aye, please.
What was that?
I oppose.
Opposed? Okay. And Jesse Redlow?
Aye.
I'm also for aye, so motion carries. Donna and Catherine, you're all set.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Again, we're going to change our application order. We're going to hear application order number 2020-034 at this time from Brian Steeler. Steeler, thank you.
Like the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Can you describe your project for us real quick?
Sure, I wrote a testimony. Hi, everyone. I hope that you and your families have been healthy and safe during the pandemic. And I thank you for considering our application and for hearing my testimony tonight. We are requesting a 6-foot privacy fence on our corner lot for a number of important reasons. First, as residents in a fairly new residential tract and as owners of a house on a large corner lot, we currently have no privacy whatsoever in our yard. It makes us extremely uncomfortable to be out in our yard, which was true even before we had kids. And now that we have kids, it's exponentially more so. We're also up on a hill, which means that the extent to which we are on display is even greater. It makes it really hard to play. It makes it impossible to relax, and it means we never feel like we are at home. The newness of the neighborhood also means that there are no well-established trees to assist in privacy. Second, though first in importance, is safety. We have 2 boys, ages 2 and 4, and they are both extremely active, especially our 2-year-old. So if we are ever outside with them, which is rare because we don't feel safe out there, but if we are outside, we are constantly worried that one of our boys might run into the street. If you look around the neighborhood, there's not a lot of kids playing in the front yard because the street is right there. They play in the backyard, but our backyard has a street along the whole side of it. So it doesn't feel like a backyard. It doesn't feel safe to us. So we don't really play out there. Beyond the danger of the road, the sidewalk along our yard is also very, very long, and it's extremely high traffic for walkers. So people walk by our yard constantly, and it's a long walk across our yard. So that's problematic, but it's also problematic because our 4-year-old has an intense fear of dogs, and we are a very dog-heavy neighborhood. So there are constantly dogs walking across the entire yard, which is a very, very long walk. And if there's ever dogs out there, that really causes my son to have anxiety. He's been diagnosed with anxiety and fears, and dogs is one of them. And then third, I believe that the fence would actually improve the aesthetic of the neighborhood. I know it was suggested that it might not, but it would provide privacy, not just for us, but for our neighbors. And it would reduce the giant open field that our section of the neighborhood has. Adding to this, the existing town code would have us start our fence at the physical back corner of our house, which would leave this in enormous unfenced and unused side yard, which would look really, really unattractive. I know because there are houses in the neighborhood that have done that, and it looks really, really unattractive and awkward. Personal opinion, no offense to anybody in the neighborhood who's watching. So yeah, I think that would be problematic and would be less attractive for my neighbors than if I get this variance. And then lastly, I'd like to just address some of the concerns that were brought up earlier. So I took some notes and I'm going to try to address them all. In regards to the distance from the sidewalk, we have an easement there, and so it would have to be on the other side of the easement anyways. We measured that, so it would be about 18 feet away from the sidewalk is where the fence would start, possibly 20 feet. Actually, I would love some guidance on how far away from the easement we should be, whether that's 1 foot, 2 foot, or what. But at a minimum, it would be 18 feet away from the sidewalk. So in regards to line of sight, the distance from the sidewalk, in my opinion, renders this concern moot. It was also suggested that the fence would harm the neighborhood aesthetic by reducing the ability to see a great distance across everyone's backyards, which to me was a strange thing to hear, because in any established neighborhood, there's never really an ability to see across everybody's backyards like there is in our neighborhood. It actually feels very strange in our neighborhood that you can see everybody's backyards. So I think that if we put in a privacy fence, that would work towards addressing a problem rather than creating one, because again, that ability to see into everybody's backyards is a problem, not a benefit. In regards to fence height, a 3-foot fence coming off a 6-foot fence for the rest of the perimeter would be highly unattractive. It would also do nothing for safety or for privacy. The idea that a 3-foot fence would keep my boy safe is just not true to the experience of a parent who has young kids who are eager and capable climbers. My kids regularly climb over 3-foot baby gates inside our house. Trust me, they will climb over a 3-foot fence. Also, it would provide no privacy. And it was also suggested that we could do a 4-foot fence, which would provide some privacy for my kids, but would and some safety for my kids, but would not provide privacy for my wife, who is taller than 4 foot, nor for me, who is taller than 4 foot, nor for any of our adult guests. And then in regards to fences in the neighborhood, there are many fences in the neighborhood. It was suggested that there weren't. There are dozens and dozens of fences in the neighborhood. And there's actually a corner lot that is very nearby to our home that has a 6-foot privacy fence on its side yard. So they had to have gotten an approval from your committee. I'd like to close by asking you to vote in favor of my application so that my family can feel safe and comfortable and get to enjoy the outdoors. Even when the weather is good, our family still feels stuck inside. It's a feeling that we felt even more intensely during this lockdown. And I want to be able to give my kids a great place to play outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions from members of the board?
I have a couple. So it is a privacy fence. What is the material that you picked to make this fence? Wood, vinyl, or something else?
Wood. We can't afford a vinyl fence.
Yeah, I believe me, I understand.
And it would be shadow boxed because of the intense winds. I think, Robert, you're in a neighborhood, so the intense winds, obviously we'd want to have that be shadow boxed so that the fence didn't get knocked over.
Yeah. I had another one and I'll think of it in a minute. Anyone else have any questions for him?
Mr. Steeler, you addressed a lot of my initial concerns in your remarks, which I appreciate. Because at first I was having trouble wrapping my head around the need for the privacy. I appreciate you sharing why that need exists. I certainly understand where you're coming from with that. You know, I mean, a 6-foot fence is double the code. It is a pretty substantial variance. But my question is, so what could you explain in a little bit more detail? Why would a 4-foot fence not provide what you need for the safety of your kids?
A 4-foot fence would address the safety concern that I have, but it would not address any of the privacy concerns that I have.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Any other questions for members of the board?
I do not have any.
No.
Do we have any questions, comments, concerns from members of the audience?
I have 2 questions from one resident. Her name is Peggy. One of them was addressed what materials the fence to be made of. And her second question was, what is the setback from blade and loop to the sidewalk?
That would be the 18 feet minimum. And then I was hoping that somebody would give me guidance on if we needed to go back further, because it's like 16 feet to the easement. So we were assuming it would be another 2 feet beyond the easement, but if it needs to be more, please let me know.
I actually have a clarity question. I am asking for clarity. I'm looking at the pictures again. Brian, this is for you. Are you implying, because I don't have a scale here, that basically the drainage curb, you know, the cement on the street itself to the edge of the sidewalk is 18 feet? Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying that the fence will be 18 feet?
Oh, you know what? I think I was measuring from, it depends on where the sidewalk is in this drawing. I was looking at the drawing. It is very far in from the sidewalk. It might be that it's 18 feet in from the road.
I'll point out that on the map that the applicant attached, both Layden Loop and Sedgley Park have a 60-foot right-of-way. The Sedgley Park shows the sidewalk just outside the property line, so I'm guess that the other sidewalk would be approximately in the same location.
Yeah.
So the distance of the easement.
Oh, I see. Yeah, from the sidewalk drawing. Yeah, it should be like 18 feet then.
So it's going to be 18 feet back from the sidewalk.
Yeah, from the property
based
line.
on this drawing.
Okay.
I just have one more question, if I may. Out of curiosity, because I know you're expressing issues of feeling comfortable in your backyard and privacy. When you bought the lot, were you aware that this would be a corner lot in a neighborhood?
Yes, I was also in my early 20s, and there are lots of things I wish I did differently when I bought my first house. We actually considered moving earlier this year, but we love the town of Henrietta and we wanted to stay here. We wanted to be part of the school district, and with the pandemic, it ended up being a wise decision. But yeah, we want to reinvest and stay here, and we don't feel like we'll be able to stay in this house long term without this fence.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, can you touch base on the distance from the edge of the easement for their fence?
I apologize. I'm having a little technical difficulties on as far as my phone is concerned. You want the distance from,
He wants to know if he could put the fence right on the edge of the easement, or should he?
oh,
buffer-
yes. Yeah, as long as he stays outside the easement, that's all he needs to do.
Yeah, do I
know-
need to give clearance beyond those, like, there's like that metal square, which is another reason I want a fence, because my kids, if I'm worried they're gonna slam their face or leg into that metal square in my yard.
Are you talking about the clean outs for the sanitary and the storm?
Yeah, yeah.
Right up, yeah, so those are right on the easement line, which that typically they want those right on the private property, just outside that easement, so. You would have, you would have to be out, towards your house from those. If we're talking about the two clean outs there.
And those
Yeah,
are
like,
in the
do I need-
picture.
if
in
I'm
the
able to get this
survey.
approved, do I need to go, like, do I need to give clearance on both sides of those clean outs, whatever they're called?
Yeah, you would have to, well, those are technically your, let's see, sanitary clean out, yeah. So those are your your clean outs, but you should have access to them from the outside the fence. It appears that they're right on the easement line,
Yeah.
according to the survey map anyway. Real world, it should be pretty close. How far from the side of the house were you looking to go?
I had it measured by, I've had some estimates, but now I don't have them in front of me.
Looks like about 30.
Basically out to the easement. So on the map, that's about 34 feet, 34.8.
Yeah, you just want to make sure you just want to make sure you maintain access to those cleanouts. You'll eventually you may need them. And those are actually those cleanouts go down and towards the main, so away from your house. So you want to make sure that they're accessible. I would say on the outside of the fence is the easiest way to access those. So if you were to bring the fence in towards the house a couple feet, to give you clearance on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I don't think we answered the question from a lady named Peggy. She's actually had two of them on here. One of them is.
The second one was the width of the easement.
Yeah, does it comply with the line of sight is one of them. And the other one that she's asking is, what about hedges instead of a fence?
If you show me some hedges that can stop a 2- and 4-year-old from running out to the sidewalk, I think you've got a good invention on your hands. Hedges would not provide any safety for us. And then I don't know about line of sight. That's not an area of expertise for me. I imagine it would not interfere because it's so far back from the sidewalk, and also the road curves away from it.
And there's a line of sight easement already on your survey map that you're not invading or encroaching on. Okay.
Okay, Heather, do we have any other comments, questions, or concerns from audience?
Nothing.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? There being none, this application is closed. Do we have a motion or discussion?
Any discussion or?
Any
know.
discussion?
I think we probably should have discussion, in my opinion. I don't know. Should we do a straw man real quick to see?
Well, if you want to discuss.
As much as I understand his concerns and I feel for him, I would only be comfortable saying a 4-foot fence, and I understand what he said, and I hear all that. I'm not trying to dismiss it, but I think in my opinion, for the rest of the neighborhood, we have to balance the benefits to the applicant versus the detriment to the neighborhood, and I think the 3-foot fence, 4-foot fence, I'm sorry, he indicated would fix the safety concern, but I know that's a heartfelt concern that he has about the privacy component of it. But again, I have troubles with the 6-foot fence on this side, which is the front face of another street.
I concur with Bob. I'm okay with approving a 4-foot fence. I'm against a 6-foot for the exact same reason.
There was a 6-foot corner that, like right around the block for me that you guys must have approved. So I don't understand what's different.
We're closed for testimony right now. We're in discussion. Sorry. Christian?
I understand the fact the need for security, how you feel about, privacy is, everyone wants privacy, obviously, and being a corner lot, obviously, that's something that you can't have, given the current situation. I think, if it were a little bit further towards the house, I mean, I'd probably be more apt to say, okay, with the 6-foot. I guess it depends on the easement too, where it has to be put, but I think that I'm kind of on the fence at this point. I'm thinking about it. No pun intended.
Some of the ones that I see, Christian, there's one at the corner of Hayward's Heath and Longton Place, which is just like maybe 2 blocks, give or take how you count it from Mr. Steeler. There's a big house there and it has a privacy fence. I know this, I see it often, but it looks like it's about 18 feet from the sidewalk, not from the easement, not from the street. And so I think that, to me, I would be more accepting of that size fence if it was farther back from the sidewalk. If it was at the sidewalk, to me, I think it's a wall.
It's not at the sidewalk. It's 18 feet because of the easement. The sidewalk's on the other side of the property line.
Yeah, it's 18 feet back from the sidewalk.
Okay, then I will change my request. I apologize for causing a problem there. I will accept it at 18 feet away from the sidewalk.
John, how are you?
I'm for it. I'm fine with it.
Heather?
So my parents live in this area and I know exactly how he feels. And I believe the 18-foot is adequate. So I'm in favor for it.
Beth?
I'm good with it.
I'm also good with it. So if you want to move it, John?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, with regards to application number ZBA 2020-034 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has, 1, duly advertised and held public hearings, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefits to the application versus the potential detriments to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the characteristics of the neighborhood. It's going to add privacy to the house and the property and safety for the kids. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The variance result is not substantial. The variance will not have a negative effect on the physical or environmental condition. There are other houses in the neighborhood and one other corner lot 2 blocks down that have a 6-foot fence. The difficulty related to the variance was not self-created, but needs to be done to the lot for the safety and security of his children. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approves the variance as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we're seconded by Beth. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Migliorone,
Aye.
Kristen Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow,
Opposed.
Opposed, and I am for it, so motion carries. And our next applications are from Hospitality Syracuse, Taco Bell. And Heather and myself will be recusing ourselves from this applications. Hi, Stephanie. Nice to see you.
Hey, guys.
How are you,
All
Stephanie?
right, so we're here today to talk about the 12 Taco Bell variances at the corner of Lehigh Station and Kenneth. So you guys should have the site plans in front of you, but I should be able to screen share if we need to bring anything up if there's questions. So the first 4 variances that we're asking for are for additional wall-mounted signage. So we do have 1 on each side of the building and then 2 on the east side of the building. We do feel that this is a unique property, being a corner lot as well as, kind of fronting on Kenneth and Lehigh and 390. And when this is fully built out, it's going to be highly visible from all 4 sides of the building. And because of that, Taco Bell has opted to really upgrade the looks of the building, and all 4 sides really almost look like the front. There's no typical back of the building. There's no cooler bump out. They've got towers on the back corner. The additional signs really do help to kind of balance the looks of the building. And they, so the sign on the east, there's 1 on the tower on the east side as well as over the doors. And the intention of that was to really direct the customers to the actual entrance when they are in the parking lot. With Lehigh being a busy road also, we feel that having the additional signage will help get people into the correct lanes so that they can make their decision and turn in time. Which goes along with the pylon sign too. We're requesting the 40-foot high pylon sign rather than just the 30-foot that's allowed. And again, with such a busy street, you're going to be able to see this building on 390, as you're getting off the ramp. We think that taller pylon sign will really help with the safety along that corridor so people can make their decisions and get into the correct lanes. So that covers kind of the pylon and the wall mounted. And then the other big one is the area variance, which for the total sign area. So we're asking for 342 square feet where only 250 is allowed. And again, we feel like that's all, pretty necessary to help direct all of the customers to the area. And the way the town calculates the signage, 159 square feet of that is the pylon sign alone, because we need to calculate both sides of that pylon. And the other signs are the 3 directional signs. So if you look at our site plan, you'll see where they're called out. We have an enter sign, an exit sign, and a drive-through sign. And if you're looking at the sign packet with just the individual signs shown for the pylon and the directional, and just to clarify, that does show other ones on the bottom. That just shows the typical options available to Taco Bell. We're not proposing all 8 of those signs. We're only proposing 3 directional signs. And the enter and directional sign, or the enter and exit signs, each require 2 variances apiece. 1 because the logo is on there, and the second because it's over 4 feet as the allowed. And then the drive-through sign is an additional accessory sign, and that one just requires a variance for area over 3 square feet. And again, these are just the proto directional signs available to Taco Bell, and it is similar to what's on Jefferson now. I don't think those are at the 5 feet height, but they do have the logo sign. There are options if the board really is opposed to the height or the logo, but if we can get it, then that's the preferred for the client.
What are the, I'm sorry, I shouldn't jump in yet.
So then the last variance is for the entrance width. So we have 54.4 foot wide width at the right of way, where only 50 feet is allowed. And that is really for the truck delivery access as well as emergency access. Because if you're coming north on Kenneth, you have to almost turn back on yourself as you enter the site. So for larger vehicles, it's hard to make that sweep. The way it's designed now, the delivery trucks can turn into the site and stay completely within their lane. If we need to curb where that striped area is, then it would force vehicles into the exiting lane to cross over in order to make that movement. So it is possible, but it could be one of those situations where a tractor trailer would need to go slow and make people back up to be able to get in there. So this is obviously the preferred and the safest layout the way we have it here now. And Bob, I think you're on the directional signs. I think you're probably going to ask what the options are. So, you know, we can obviously get directional signs that don't have a logo and they can get a shorter pole. We can do whatever is needed there. But our biggest reason that we want the logo with another restaurant next door, whatever is going to be built to the north, is just kind of the internal circulation to help identify where things are. If you're entering on this, you know, main entrance road on the north of the property, and you're trying to figure out where Taco Bell is, where Burger King is, whatever else, I think it would really be helpful to have those logos in there. So you know, Taco Bell, you're making the first right, there'd be another, you know, and obviously we're not here to talk about Burger King, but there could be signs for that property as well saying go straight or whatever and help with that internal circulation.
So I have a handful of questions. I'm going to start out as if we're driving in. Okay, that's my route that I'm going to follow when I'm asking the questions. First of all, the 54-foot wide entrance, as far as the rest of the group, I think it's great. I had a great experience recently at the Dairy Queen, not that far away. They have this weird shaped thing like you would be required if we don't approve it. And I hit it with my wheel. I'm sort of embarrassed. My kids and my wife still laugh at me every time we go in that vicinity. So I'm all for that one. I agree with the turning angle and everything else of that street is a little odd. The Taco Bell entrance sign, it looks to me, if I recall from the last time that you were in front of us, seemed like entrance on that little access road. Not Kenneth, the little road that we're asking to expand the entrance. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
So I don't think that whether they're going to Burger King or Taco Bell, I don't think they're going to have a question with the fact that that's the entrance. They can't make a wrong guess there. That's my opinion. And I am slightly against the quantity of signs that are here. So the two things we talked about a month or two ago was traffic, which has been dealt with, and then to me, signage. So I think signage is important. And as my stance, I think you should have a sign on each face of this building because I think it's an odd layout, as you sort of have identified, because of the lots and they're facing each other. The single sign makes sense on a straight, mall or something, but you have access from all sides visibly. So I'm for that. I would like to know what you can do on the east face. I am not for two signs on the east face. I am not so much for the signage with the Taco Bell. It's up to some of the other people as well. I'm sorry, I'm referring to the directional signs with the Taco Bell on it. And the other thing is, and so I'd love to hear your other scenarios like height and the bell on it, even though it might be at the other one, to me is not the most appealing thing, and I'm against that. But also the 40-foot sign, I understand why you're asking for it, but I think the people on 390 that would be looking for that 40-foot sign potentially, either direction that they're going, they're past it with regards to the exit. So I don't know. I guess it's up to some of the others too, but those are the things that I have. So how hard is it? How negative is it if you have the signs for direction not having Taco Bell on it? I'm sorry, the logo. And I might be okay with the one that's the drive-through one. That one I can appreciate. So for me, for the rest of the group, that's what I would think. What are your thoughts, Jesse, Christian, John, Beth?
So with this, I agree with the vast majority of what the vice chairman said. So I'll give you a rundown of where I am, Stephanie, and the rest of the Taco Bell people on here. I concur with, I'm okay with one sign on each side of the property. I don't want two on one side. I agree with the vice chairman on that. I do not see it necessary for your directional signs to have the Taco Bell logo, nor do I deem it necessary for them to be 5 feet high instead of 4 feet. I don't think that extra foot is going to buy you a lot of extra visibility. So I'm not feeling very inclined to grant that. And I'm definitely against the 40-foot pylon sign. That's just, it's too high. It's there. The code is there for a reason. I'm okay with the 54.4-inch wide driveway for the safety of the tractor trailer. I have no issue with that. So that's where I am.
Pretty much the same that I just said as far as for me. I'm also basically against the height of the signs, where to be 5 foot instead of 4. I think 4 is adequate for the signs. I also think that the pylon sign, 40 feet is excessive. I think 30 feet is fine. That is more than adequate, I think, for the need for that pylon to be visible. And I think also I'm okay with that driveway being extra a little bit wider, because I know that's kind of odd. It's not a 90-degree turn in when you're coming in from off of the road there. So I can definitely see where that needs to be a little bit wider for either the trucks when they come to make deliveries, or even larger vehicles to make that turn properly.
What is the reason for the 5-foot signs, Stephanie? Is there a one thing I don't see on here, or at least I don't recognize with my vision, is the grading for the placement of these signs. Are they low compared to the road? Is that why you're asking for the extra height?
The 5 foot is just the Taco Bell proto. So any, they have, the Yum is kind of the parent company. The Yum Brands comes out with that sign. So that's what we're supposed to try and use first, if there's, if that's an option. But the other thing in this area that the higher sign is nice for is for snow storage. As snow starts to pile up along the edge of the roads and everything, that's still visible.
Okay, that's a fair assessment, or a fair comment. I did not consider that. People on the board, what do you guys normally see around there? The higher signs, or is that? So I guess if you removed, Stephanie, if you removed the bell, I'm talking the directional type signs. If you remove the bell, how high does that make the sign? Because I see the drive-through and the bell are 2'7" in the one sample.
Correct. And I guess I don't have an exact answer, but it looks like maybe that would be about half.
1'3".
A little less than half.
Yeah. So
there's no option
does that change
for the bell
anybody's
to be
opinion?
to the left of. See, if instead of the bell being above the directional information, if it was, say, the bell and then if it says drive through, or if it says, can you hear me?
You're saying horizontal instead of vertical?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got a message saying that my internet connection was unstable. Did you get my whole message? Or did it break up?
I think you were asking if they could make it horizontal versus vertical.
Right, yes. I don't know if that's an option or not.
Stephanie, is that an option? I mean, I'm opposed to the extra logos. I don't know, Jesse, Beth, John. But is that an option, Stephanie?
I guess I'm not completely sure if it is, but I guess one of our biggest two things is with the logo already being at the Taco Bell on Jefferson, that precedence is kind of already set, for this, busy commercial area as well as this specific restaurant. And we do feel that it'll help as there are other developments in this plaza to help direct you in, for example, when you're heading along that road, I think if you were heading to Burger King, you would want to, continue straight through there versus taking that first right. So I think the logo does help to kind of clarify the internal circulation.
I think I was asking you that earlier. Maybe I misunderstood your answer. Didn't you say that the entrance there is the same entrance for Burger King and Taco Bell?
And maybe I misunderstood what you were asking. So the road that is to the north of us that heads east and west,
Yes.
they will enter there. And then the road in between us is shared, but I believe most of the customer traffic would likely just continue straight east past this first road where it's the Taco Bell telling you to turn right, and you'd continue straight and then turn into the next right. And this application that came to you guys just didn't have the overall plan with it to see that intent.
Yeah, and I can't remember. Does anybody remember from the last one that came through on the board if it's shared entrance? The entrance that's north and south, just past the Taco Bell, the property line there in the middle. Is that the entrance for Burger King as well?
You would have access from.
Oh, there we go. Let's see that. Okay, that's the one we have here. Okay.
Yeah.
No, there's extra.
You would have access from both sides. But I think most customers would likely continue straight east and then taking the next right in versus taking the same right that you would make for the Taco Bell.
Okay.
So I know we don't have the Burger King on this right now. So are we talking a pylon sign on the other side for Burger King then?
They would likely propose one as well. This property has been subdivided, so they would be allowed one, and it would be a completely separate application and sign permit and everything.
Sure. I'm just thinking about, the overall look of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the board? I do think there's a little more discussion to wrap up here if there's no more questions. We also have to ask for questions from the audience. And Heather, I guess
I have nothing.
No other questions from the audience. All right. So I guess right now we'll close this down and I think we'll have 2 seconds for the internal discussion here, and then we'll make our motions. Based on the testimony that we're hearing, I think I still stand with I'd like to have just one sign on the east wall. It's Bob's opinion. I understand the potential reason for the extra height on these signs. I'm generally okay with that, especially with the snow component that I mean, there's gonna be a lot of snow to move around in this smaller lot with 2 buildings there and potentially a 3rd one coming. So I'm okay with that. That's the one thing that changed my opinion. I don't love the idea of the Taco Bell logo all over the place as extra stuff. I'm generally not the biggest fan of extra signage. And so that's my opinion. So I think people are going to be able to figure out how to get in there. There's going to be an entrance sign, all that stuff. So that's my feel. Is there anybody that really we need one more vote to agree with me or not? And then it'll potentially be cut with the signage bell symbol.
So you're talking the bell.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
The bells are the ones that I'm going to vote against.
You're talking the bells on the directional signs.
Yes, I'm going to vote against those.
I agree. I'll vote against the bells on the signs. I also, I'm still not in favor of the 5-foot height, even with the snow consideration. I didn't think of it either. I appreciate that they brought it up. I still think 4 feet is adequate. So I'm not there on this, on the height variance.
So if the bell is taken off of the signs, there's no variance needed, right?
I think
Right,
they're at
the
4 feet or
variance
less.
is there so it can be, so they can put the sign on it. And you know, everyone else has 4-foot high signs and they have the same amount of snow. So I think that it's just basically because their sign or the symbol, the bell is what's making it taller than what the variance is normally. So yeah, I'm against the 5 foot for those signs.
And therefore, how about the bells, Christian?
Well, I mean, that's something that I don't like, I mean, having it everywhere. I mean, I think by the time you've gotten to that point, you know where you're going, you've made a decision. So maybe, you know, there doesn't need to be a bell on every single sign. I think that's a bit overkill, but I understand there's a branding aspect to it, but it's still at the same time, I think it's excessive.
I agree.
Okay. I guess that also, I'd love to hear from Beth because, and John, you guys have been a little quieter, mostly because I'm apparently talking too much.
I'm just looking to see what we did on Jefferson Road here. Hold on.
I think it's important to remember, John, that every one of these is evaluated independently.
Right.
Yeah, just for the record, I don't appreciate the statement from the applicant about looking at precedent because each one is evaluated independently. So I'm not as interested with what they did on Jefferson Road. I'm interested in this unique location.
Understood.
Being that this unique location is going to be a more commercial, busier establishment, given the amount of businesses that are along there and Kenneth Drive, I don't see where having the bells are going to make this too many signs. I think having those directional signs and the fact that you have 2 fast food businesses so close in proximity, it should clear up some of that. You need to immediately turn to your right to get in queue for drive-through for Taco Bell. I believe that needs to have a bell and the drive-through in order for someone to have that clear information. The pole sign for 40 feet, I understand the need for that to be that height, for it to be seen from 390. You have to understand that that's the throughway exit and entrance area as well. So when you have traffic coming in off the throughway for people who are not familiar with the area, having that sign there allows them to know which way to turn when they're coming off the throughway, which would be left under the throughway overpass and then immediately to the right. And then them coming in, you have traffic. Hopefully it will pick up as we open back up the country and people want to travel. You want to have that ability for someone who isn't familiar with the area to go where they need to go without creating more of a traffic backup as they either have to circle the parking lot and potentially if it's a very busy time of the day that they're going in there, kind of, I don't want to say mess up the queue, but we've all seen the traffic backup for some of these locations in Henrietta where the only alternative they have right now is a drive-through. So I see the value and the benefit to having a sign that's tall, the directional signs, in addition to the pole sign.
We've already been assured, Beth, that traffic won't be a problem based on the fact that the traffic study was done and others as well.
Not talking about traffic on the roadway. What I'm talking about is you have somebody who isn't familiar with the area that's coming off the throughway because perhaps maybe they did see the Taco Bell sign, or because they're coming to the Rochester area, they see the Taco Bell pylon sign and they're like, this is exactly the 4th meal that I needed. And they are able to pull in there and know where they're going.
And you think that the 40-foot sign over a 30-foot sign coming from the throughway looking underneath the bridge would make a difference like that?
I see the value of having that signage. I was in on the voting of the sign heights for Anderson Equipment. And I saw the value of, for a business that's on Middle Road, having the signage on 390. So when someone doesn't turn on or get off the 390 at Lehigh, they know that they haven't exactly lost their way to be able to get off at Highland and backtrack.
Okay. I think that's insightful and I appreciate it.
I'm along the same lines as Beth, what she said for signage wise.
So, and I gotta be honest, Beth, your insight is making me consider, so I'm glad that you're sharing this and putting it out there. What about, Beth, specifically you, what about the east face of the building?
Quite honestly, the east face isn't my concern. The west elevation, I don't see where the Taco Bell and the bell would necessarily be needed on the drive-through sign side of the building. And I would be more inclined that if they dropped the words Taco Bell and just left the bell on the east and the west side, I think they would achieve just as much, because the bell has been determined to be the known symbol for Taco Bell.
Okay. So I guess my question is variance 1 and 2. Are you comfortable with both of those or one of those? Or none, or something else?
I'm comfortable how they are. I just think it's redundant to keep having the bell and Taco Bell, because obviously one is both.
Okay. I gotta be honest, Beth, I think Beth is changing some of my opinion. I do not agree with the 40-foot sign. I'm a little more comfortable with the bell. With her view of this and the way she's explaining it, I can agree a little more. So I think Jesse and I and Christian were the ones that were saying no. Do we have do we move forward with this or do we not do it? I think I'm not going to give the 40-foot sign, in my opinion, and I'm not going to, based on Beth and John, I think I will switch the sign. So I'm glad we had the discussion. From my seat, I would switch those, pretty much all the other ones. So the two that I would not approve are the tall sign, 40 foot instead of 30. And I would not approve one of the west face signs, which would either be what they call variance 1 or 2.
We had already said that you originally were against variance 1 and you were okay with the variance 2. So you're switching that basically. So you're okay with the sign that's over the entrance to the building and not the other one?
1 or 2.
You're okay with, you're not.
One
well, I'm okay with 2, but not 1. That was the way that we were originally. That's how I feel.
Okay.
But you've changed your mind where it's, could you clarify again? Because you're now, so you switched it, or you're not okay with either one of them?
No.
Are you talking east elevation, Christian?
What's that?
Are you talking the east elevation?
Yeah, the east
sign over
side. I'm okay with either or.
Yeah, so
Not
the east
both.
elevation, that's not an entrance. That's just glass. Right?
No, the sign above it.
Yeah, there's no door there. That's just glass.
No, there's door there.
I thought that was the entrance to the building.
Variance number 1 is the entrance to the building.
Right.
Above, I'm sorry, it's above the entrance to the building is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
There's an overhang that sticks out according to the drawing, and what do you call it, a vestibule or whatever, that they would walk into at what looks like glass under the words Taco Bell.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm against.
Okay. All right, so I think so. I'm gonna have to write these up, and I'm So you're against number one. Jesse, are you for or against number one or two or one, I guess?
I'll go with Christian. I don't want them to have both 1 and 2. I'm okay with them having one of them. So Christian, if you would rather see them have number 2, I'll go with that. I just don't want both. That's where I am.
Well, I guess they could, if they have it, they could put it either location. That's up to them, I suppose, but.
I'll reopen this to ask a question in a minute because I want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to pass or not the other one? So I'm talking the directional signs, the way they are requested. Are we going to pass those or not? I changed my mind based on Beth.
I'm fine with the directional signs.
I'm against the extra foot higher for all three of those, or wait a minute.
Okay.
And
Jesse?
I'm strongly against the extra height on the directional signs and the logo on the sign. I'm against the whole thing. I do appreciate the perspective that Beth provided. I do appreciate hearing about that, but it did not change my mind.
Okay. So I think and John, you already said it, so I'm gonna say this. It sounds like all the signs based on Christian and I are gonna pass with the height. I'm sorry, not with the height restriction, but they are gonna be okay with the logo. So we're gonna make those all 4 foot. And then variance 3, 4, I guess 5, 6 is not gonna pass. So 3, 4, 5 is gonna pass. 1, we're saying no. 2, we're saying okay. Okay. I think I can write this up.
Well, is
I'm
that
gonna
gonna,
open it up. If I want to open this back up to the applicants, I can just do that. So I would like to reopen this to the applicants and ask a question about variants 1 and 2, which are actually labeled according to the town as 2020-022 and 2020-023. If you have, it seems like we are gonna grant just one of these. Which one is the preferred sign that you would like to have for the east face of your building?
We would agree with the board and pull off the one over the door and keep the one that we have labeled as number 2 on the tower.
Okay, so 022 ending in 022 will be declined. And I think everything else we said, that might change your request for area variance number 5, which is the total square footage of the signage.
and we're cutting down the height.
Says that it's 41 square feet. Are my eyes correct?
Yes, that's 41 square feet. So if you take that out, it would be 300.6 square feet.
300.6.
No
Okay.
Any square footage difference with the height of the signs or no?
We still need a variance for the logo, so therefore we would have to still include all of the square footage for the directional.
I think we're going to give you the variance for the logo, but not for the height.
Okay, that works.
And so I think that's the path that we're going to take, even though I understood your request. It seems like that's the path we're going to take.
Really quick, I don't know the gentleman's name in the Sabres shirt there. I forgot your name, it's not listed. At one point you turned your camera and you showed something that was like a sign that was different than the one you're proposing. Is it a different location? Was it?
My name is Chris Campbell. I'm with APD Engineering and Architecture. That is the sign that's currently in place in Jefferson Road, and I can show that to you again. That's basically what the sign looks like. So that would be another option. Instead of, the 5 foot tall sign, we could do something of that nature that would give us a 4 foot height and still give us the depth underneath for snow storage. And it still has the bell and the thank you. Obviously, this is an older store and an older logo. So that's not the direction that the parent brand wants to go in. But there is a sign of that nature, or the other option is to lower the sign that we're proposing a foot.
Right. So yeah, like either that option with side by side or 1 foot lower is it's up to you, I guess. But yeah, that would be your decision. So yeah.
Okay. And I'd just like to add, while you have me on here, about the pylon sign and the 40-foot versus 30-foot. I mean, we are talking about signs down within that 390 corridor, and we are trying to capture some of our business from the 390. So there's a lot of traffic that's going to be on 390, and we know that, and the town knows that. And we're trying to bring business to the town of Henrietta, and we feel that the 40-foot high sign would be better to help attract more customers to this area of Henrietta. I think it's a little lesser well-known area of Henrietta as far as commercial business is concerned. So I think it will help bring people to that area. Developing this parcel overall will help bring people to that area as well. So I'd just like to add that little bit in there. And thank you for your time.
Another question I have, and I don't know if this, you could probably either answer that, I just thought of it, but on the expressways, will you be putting up signage or requesting the state for signage to say that at this stop is where the, well, what different restaurants are available? I'm not sure if that's something that is in the works to, if there's a sign already existing for that exit. I didn't know there was something you were also looking into, so anyone driving along can see what restaurants are at that exit. What would be your restaurants?
I know I've seen that signage on the thruway. I'm not necessarily familiar with that type of signage on 390 itself.
Okay.
You know, but that is a potential. I don't think there's anything anything in the works for that, you know, with the state itself.
Okay. Just throwing it out there. I didn't know if that was something you were looking into as well.
Okay, so are there any other questions from the audience? And I think the answer was already no, but I will double check with Heather.
Still no.
Okay, with that, these applications are closed, and unfortunately, it's going to take me a minute or two to get these coordinated, and then I'll make a motion for all of these. But it will take me about a minute or two. Okay.
I'm going to step away for a minute and get a drink, so I'll be right back.
Okay. I'm ready to do this. So, and Heather, I got a question for you. Is it okay to do most of these? I'm going to end up making three proposals here, or three motions. One of them will be no for the different signage things, and one of them will be yes for the different signage things, and then I'll have an adjustment for the square footage. Is that okay to do it on three, or do I need more? Maybe it's Eric too. I don't know who I asked.
3 seems normal.
Okay. So I will start out, and where's my, here it is. So with regards to applications number 2020, 022, 027, 031, and 032, for an area variance, I move to deny as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit of the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. The added height of the signage is not something that that will add enough value to the customer to offset the detriment to the neighborhood. The variance cannot really be achieved by some other method, and there aren't many other feasible alternatives besides height and size. So that's another factor. The variance requested is substantial. The quantity of signs as well as the extra height definitely makes a substantial difference. The variance would have a negative effect on the physical environmental conditions, or I'm sorry, will not, I meant to say. The difficulty relating to the variances was self-created, and the design of this location, that is something that they put in place. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby denies the variances as presented.
I second.
So all
Bob, do
those
roll
in favor
call.
respond by saying aye. Robert Peckham, aye. John Migliorini,
Nay.
wait. Christian Chamberlain,
Aye to the denial.
okay. Beth Mossworth
Nay.
and Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
Okay. With that, those variances 22, 27, 31, and 32 are denied.
Hey, Bob, wait a minute. Did John say yay to the denial, or did you say nay to the denial?
Nay to the denial.
So you're,
So we needed two. Don't forget, Christian, because there's only 5 of us voting, we only need 2. We have to have it by 4. Oh, which means
We didn't get 4.
Yeah, right now we have Beth and John voting against your denial.
3-2 or to approve it. Is that correct, Heather?
It's 3-2 right now.
Eric, repeat that, please.
It is 3 voting to deny it and 2 voting to approve it at the current time.
But in order for it to pass, they have to have 4 voting to approve it.
right.
Because it's out of 7, not out of 5.
So Eric, what's the outcome with the way we all just voted?
We may have to table this since we have 2 people that are not voting. I wonder if that gives us a quorum to vote for it. Well,
I don't believe that we have a quorum at the moment.
Hey, Bob, quick question. 32 you denied?
Hang on. That is what I said. And let me look at 32 to be sure I'm not lying, or not lying, I'm sorry, that I'm not saying the wrong number.
And this was the directional sign 5 foot where 4 foot was allowed? They agreed to the 4 foot.
They agreed to 4 foot. We declined the 5 foot. So because they agreed to the 4 foot, I really don't need that one.
We're declining it, but they're okay with, they're going to go with the 4 feet, but because we're denying the 5 feet, they're not withdrawing the application. We're just denying the application based as how it was submitted.
Because they don't need a variance for a 4-foot.
They don't, no. We
As a
still have to
matter of-
deny the variance as it was presented or applied for. Is that right, Heather?
That's correct.
Bob, if the vote stands as 3-2, what happens is it just lingers for 2 months until if I'm not mistaken, Eric, it just lingers till the 2 months where, since it doesn't have a core majority vote, it just would go to automatic denial.
So whether we vote on it or not, they're not going to be getting the approval of 22, 27, 31, and 32 is what I think I just heard. Is that how you understand that, Doug?
It's a question of how it's denied, because we don't have we don't have a majority vote on it either way. It'll just stay at the board for 2 months, and then it will be denied because of inaction. I believe that's how it goes. Is that right, Eric?
I think Doug is correct. If we don't have a majority to approve it, then effectively it will be denied.
Okay. So what do we?
To deny is denied, or the variance entirely is denied?
The variance is denied.
Variances that Bob just read off that were being voted on would effectively be denied.
So the height of the signs, basically, and one of the face signs on the east wall, which is considered variance number 22, can't be denied because we don't have enough people to deny them, but it will be denied because we don't have enough people to approve them.
Okay.
That's a correct summary.
If I can just jump in, would it be better for the board if we withdraw them?
Heather, Eric, this is new to me. I've never had a non-quorum.
Neither have I.
I believe the answer would be yes.
It might be better for the applicant if they're withdrawn and the board does not take any action on them.
Okay. So we understand where the board is going with respect to the motion that was put out there. So we can remove those applications that are up for request for denial, I guess. Can you name off the numbers? I believe it was
22, 27, 31, and 32.
Okay. So you don't want to take 27 out of there and then we can do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like your approach, but I'm sure.
We will withdraw 22, 27, 31, and 32.
Heather, paperwork, well, I'll ask you in a minute. With regards, I'm going to do the other one here. This is odd for us. I think this one's going to pass. So with regards to applications number 2020-023, 024, 025, 028, 029, 030, and 033, for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be it resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals makes the following findings of facts. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to the nearby properties. The additional signage will add value by making sure the customers are going to the right location and lowering congestion. The variances cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative due to the lot, extra signage and size is needed. The variance is requested is substantial, but is appropriate for the facilities.
Mr. Vice Chairman, if I could do a quick point of order, because I believe that I missed it. Could you please reread which applications this is pertaining to? I think I missed one of them.
And Jesse, I can, but I want to point out that 26 is the total area variance that I'm going to do a separate one on. But 23, okay. 24, 25, 28, 29, 30, and 33.
Okay, I just wrote it down wrong. Thank you.
No problem. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. The difficulty relating to the variance was self-created, but does make sense to direct traffic and safety. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby approve the variances as presented.
Second. That one.
Who said, was that Christian that said it first?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor respond by saying aye. Robert Peckham, aye. John Migliorini,
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
I oppose.
Okay. And my final one here is going to be regarding 2020-026.
What's the total square footage with the ones that were denied, that were removed and denied?
300.6 is what we were just told. And that's the reason I'm separating it. So here we go. With regards to application number 2020-026 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be it resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to the nearby properties. Additional signage is required because of the uniqueness of the space. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The variance requested is not substantial due to the spacing of this facility. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. The difficulty relating to the variance was self-created. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby approves the variance as presented, and be it further resolved that this approval shall be subject to the following conditions, that it will be a total of 300.6 feet for all signage.
306.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for clarity. 306 feet for all signage. Do I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. And then we're going to need verbal ayes when I call your name. Robert Peckham, aye. John Migliorini,
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Opposed.
Opposed. So those, what else do I have here? So those motions carry. And I guess that's it. Do we put this back to Doug to close the meeting, or?
Yeah, we should.
Yes, is he coming up?
Adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:41.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Good work on the Zoom meeting, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good night.